In today's show, NBA executives think this summer is going to be the summer of a hot trade market. What does that mean for the Blazers, and will they get involved? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. Listen to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's program, we're going to talk trades, not the specifics of any trade, although we'll get into a little bit of that towards the end of the program. But it has been reported several places, including earlier this week by ESPN, that this summer is projected to be the summer of a hot trade market. And not just because Kevin Durant's going to get traded and Giannis Antetokounmpo might get traded, although I don't think he will, and because Desmond Bane got traded for $10,000 million first, but because in general, the perception is that the way for every team in the current climate to get better is through the trade market. So we'll talk about all of that in today's show. We'll talk about how that impacts the Blazers, kind of how they've approached this in the past, and their path, should they get into the trade market, what that might look like. But let me rewind you a little bit. Back on May 28th, the Stein Line put out an article. Jake Fisher published a story on the Stein Line, which is a Substack newsletter, and it's published, owned by Mark Stein, but Jake Fisher writes there as well. And Jake wrote the following on May 28th. That is what, I'm picking up mid-paragraph, but that is what many teams out there are bracing for. The summer of trades, whether both Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kevin Durant or neither wind up on the open market. It's going to be a crazy summer. One Western Conference executive projects there's going to be a lot of movement. Trades are going to be the marquee aspect because there's a number of high-level players available and there aren't really any marquee free agents, adds another team's salary cap strategist. The seemingly wide-open nature of the league, about to crown its seventh new champion in a span of 7 seasons, which is an NBA first, has certainly helped fuel a more widespread go-for-it mentality. That's back on May 28th. Jake Fisher wrote that. Then on June 16th, you're listening to Tuesday, June 17th program, and a story on ESPN that followed up the Desmond Bane trade, obviously a big move during the NBA Finals. We don't need trades during the NBA Finals. The NBA Finals have been spectacular. I am recording this just after watching Game 5. Another just really fun basketball game. Hope Tyrese Halliburton is healthy and right for Game 6, and we get a classic, and we get 7 of these bad boys. But, we don't need... maybe you, dear listener, do, and certainly trades are always popular in the content metrics, but I don't care about content metrics. I care about hoop. We don't need trades during the NBA Finals. In any case, we had a trade during the NBA Finals, pretty seismic one, and at least in terms of what was traded. Desmond Bane isn't seismic, but that's a big old trade. That's a lot of first round picks. That's a big old bet on Desmond Bane. And Tim Bontemps in ESPN, that's Timmy Goodtimes, in ESPN wrote this as a kicker to his larger story about the Durant trade market and Desmond Bane and all of these things. Bontemps wrote, in a summer in which there is basically no cap space for teams, the rebuilding Brooklyn Nets, per ESPN's Bobby Marks, are the only team projected to have meaningful cap space to work with which to work, excuse me. He used correct grammar. With a limited free agent class on top of it, several sources said the busiest day of the offseason is going to be June 25th. The first round of the draft. It's the one date on the calendar when all of these teams have the ability to maneuver their rosters and improve, and possibly for the only time, given the constraints on the market in the weeks afterward. Between teams trying to shed money or just reshuffle their rosters after an eventful few months around the league, there's no shortage of teams searching for a splash. It just feels like there's going to be more activity than even normally is, an executive said. That's what Bontemps wrote. So we've got 2 reporters, one at the end of May, on May 28th, and one some 19 days later, on June 16th, basically writing the same thing and quoting executives that are saying the same thing. people in the league think there's about to be fireworks, which is fun because trades are fun. It's fun. It's fun. The offseason's fun when players change teams. Putting together big old trades and teams kind of swinging for it. Like I really like what Orlando did. They swung for it. Is it going to work? Did they overpay for Desmond Bane? Yes, they overpaid. Is it going to work? We shall see. But I like that they went for it. That's fun. Memphis kind of went on like another calculation, right? They're like, we still think we can be good. We're not going to be burned by this. And wow, what a package we got. This is going to help us make another, a major trade down the line, right? That's my read on what Memphis is up to. I like it. That's fun. And if we get 20 teams around the league making similar bets, obviously some teams are going to maybe get worse on purpose. Some teams are just going to have to get cheaper. But like making similar go for it type bets, what a fun offseason we're in for. I will offer a caveat here to Fisher's reporting and Tim Bontemps' reporting for ESPN. Back in December, both Fisher for the Stein line and ESPN, I'm not sure if it was Tim Bontemps, could have been Brian Windhorst, but someone in the Hoop Collective family said, like, most NBA executives don't think there's going to be a lot of action heading into the trade deadline. Like, we're not going to see a lot of big moves because the CBA and the new climate with the aprons has really depressed all of the potential for player movement. And then, like, look what happened at the trade deadline. It was incredibly active, big stars changing places. Like, I would say the perception and the reporting back then was incredibly wrong. So the perception and reporting now could be incredibly wrong. People get it wrong. I think even the league perception can change quickly, right? Because all of a sudden there is, the Jimmy Butler trade shakes things up and all of a sudden things get moving. Like, maybe I'm not expecting Luka Doncic to get traded in the cover of darkness, like at the trade deadline, or even like De'Aaron Fox to kind of like suddenly wiggle free from Sacramento. But I wouldn't be surprised if several sort of De'Aaron Fox, one-time all-star, fringy all-star guys do move around this summer. Because as Fisher points out, and as Bontemps points out, and as anyone who can kind of look at a quick NBA cap sheet can look at, like, there aren't a lot of teams with cap space functional to sign free agents. There isn't an intriguing free agent class to kind of drive up the need to create cap space and like go make moves. Like, I guess, you could chase Miles Turner or whatever, but that seems relatively, it just doesn't seem super appealing for the majority of teams. And because of like in the new world where you have to get up to the salary floor sooner and like teams just like can't carry cheap contracts through the season or cheap rosters through the season, like more teams are up against it. And the Blazers, quite frankly, are fairly expensive for where they are in the grand pecking order of things, right? They have a relatively expensive roster without like immense flexibility to make moves. But I want to touch on this a little bit. Like, if June 25th, as Bontemps reports, is expected to be the busiest day of the offseason because draft day is the time that teams have the most flexibility, what does that mean for the Blazers? And what should we anticipate? Let's talk about that in the second segment. Join me there. First, though, let's talk FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook and an official sports betting partner of the NBA. And as we head down to the final 1 or 2 games remaining in the NBA's postseason, FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. So whether you do want to get in on the action prior to the tip-off of Game 6 in Indiana, or you sit down on your couch, you pull up the FanDuel app, and you want to bet live, FanDuel has a whole bunch of ways to get in there. Like, you can build a same-game parlay built on player props after the game starts, or you can bet on things like third-quarter spreads, second-half rebounds, all of those things. And how about $200 in bonus bets to add to the excitement when your first $5 bet hits? Well, if you are new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. You head to FanDuel.com, you place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Pretty simple. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. So, if June 25th is going to be popping, how can the Blazers get in on the action? Like, maybe it's not just June 25th, right? I think there's a bunch of reporting, including from Shams Charania of ESPN, that like people expect, and Tim Bontemps reflected this in his stories. Well, it's like people expect Kevin Durant to get traded maybe prior to the draft. We are, we're about a week out as you're listening to this, a little more 8 days out as you're listening to this. So it's the next Wednesday, not this coming Wednesday, but the Wednesday after, and like Kevin Durant, like he might get traded by the time you hear this podcast. It sounds like it's coming soon, and Phoenix is motivated to get it done. And one of the Texas teams, or maybe all of a sudden, FanDuel's got the Miami Heat as the betting favorite to land Kevin Durant. All of a sudden, it's maybe this just gets done, right? So it's not just June 25th. Like I'm not discrediting Bontemps' reporting, but I would say like maybe more accurately, it's somewhere like 3 and 4 days around the draft. If you'll recall, like the Blazers' big move last year was prior to the draft starting, but basically agreed to as a post-draft trade because of how the rules worked. So like they were trading draft rights, so they would make the pick, and then but I had already agreed to swap. But that happened like hours before the draft started. So I think that's kind of what you're anticipating. It's not maybe just like once the gun starts, it's like okay, the draft has started, go. But is maybe that 48 hours, 24 hours leading up to the draft, and through that, and then the draft is 2 days now, which I guess it's fine for TV, but boy, does the second round not have the pop. It doesn't have as much juice as a TV event on day 2. But like there could be more action there, although I think most of the action we saw last year as a 2-day television event, it's just like wheeling and dealing draft picks as opposed to the sort of bigger seismic moves. So I think if like you're anticipating and thinking about the Blazers, they have some sort of roster clarity to sort out, right? Like, I have been maybe more vocal than others about my feelings that the Blazers like need to kind of get off and trade some of their higher paid, more veteran players. I don't like to say older because like Anthony Thomas is barely older than Twani Kamara. I think that's the wrong word. Like DeAndre Ayton's pretty young, right? Like that's the wrong word. But it's like they're experienced, they're highly paid, they're kind of in the way, or at least they share minutes with players that the Blazers have drafted in the lottery. And it's like, my feelings have been the Blazers just commit to if you're going to make all these top 10 picks, commit to them, carve out real minutes for them. You're allowed to add veterans, but like have veterans, make it so the roster makes sense. So those veterans can maybe comfortably come off the bench or like, so it's just, some roster clarity, roster balance, I think is maybe what they need. Some sort of clearer direction. Clearly, I was also wrong about the Blazers' like overall talent level last year. I think that's worth recognizing as well. So like my opinion is not deeply and always correct, but it is an opinion I have often held. And so like I am looking for the Blazers to, if they are going to find this roster clarity, find this balance, find deals in and of themselves to do so. This is the Blazers' chance, as it seems from the reporting, this seems to be the Blazers' chance to make trades. I want to say two things. If the Blazers do nothing in and around the draft, I think it'd be like a sort of generally speaking, a red flag. Like, okay, what the hell? I think that would be a fair reaction. But even if the expectation is that all of these deals are going to get done right around the draft, one, like, plugged in reporters have been wrong in the past, but it's not over. Like, the Blazers can make moves. It's just if there is a bunch of action, and I think this is the key distinction here. If there is a bunch of action, if we see many, many teams, 12, 15, 18 teams get involved in different trades, and we see like starter level talent move around the league and big money move around the league and all these things, and the Blazers don't get involved, that would actually be the red flag. If there's limited action and the Blazers don't get involved, like just that's fine. But if this assumption is correct, and the June 25th, that first round of the draft, first night of the draft, and round one of the draft is a major league moment, right? If it is a major sort of transactional window for the league and the Blazers don't get involved, then it would be like, I would say within very, very reasonable reaction to be like, okay, what the heck? And perhaps like you, dear listener, and this is like personal preference, like maybe you don't want them to make seismic trades, but I think this is a crucial window, this around the draft, for either action or inaction. If you don't want them to make moves and they don't make moves, then yeah, that's a meaningful moment, right? They're committed to this group. They're going to let them build. They're going to do all these things. But it's not the end of roster building. But I would note this. Following the sort of massive trade, Damian Lillard leaves town, right? This is like the thing that ushers in very formally a new era, although maybe some podcasters have speculated that the new era started prior to that, maybe like on draft night in 2022. But like after Damian Lillard was traded, the Blazers have made exactly 2 trades. Obviously, that was a huge trade and you kind of let things settle, but it's not like they immediately flipped Malcolm Brogdon or immediately flipped Rob Williams or any of those things. It's not like, only Brogdon has left. They have made exactly two trades since the Damian Lillard trade. They traded like a fake second round pick to get Delano Banton, and they trade a couple first round picks and Malcolm Brogdon's contract to get Deni Avdija. No other action on the trade market. They've been relatively quiet. Some of that is probably their own personal preference for not taking bad deals, not chasing deals, not like their willingness to be patient. And some of that is also probably the market dictating the Blazers, the players that they would be interested in moving or would like to move based on sort of our perception, because they might not want to move them, I think is what we're learning, but based on our perception of kind of like where they are as a team, those players don't necessarily have have a market that will make them tradable. There isn't a market for DeAndre Ayton and Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons that makes like chasing a trade worth it, right? And you don't want to, the point isn't just to like make deals to make deals, it's to upgrade the roster in either the immediate term or like the sort of long-term health of the franchise. And I will note that like the post-Damian Lillard era includes 2 trade deadlines, an entire offseason last year, an entire season this year leading up to the trade deadline. Like inaction up to this point, I think, from the Blazers, if you want to call it that, and I do, so I will. Inaction up to this point from the Blazers is probably through some lens defensible, right? Like if it's not my preference for how they've handled the roster, I think like a very reasonable argument can be made that it's defensible up to this point. I guess what I'm asking here is, are we at a point that if stuff didn't happen this summer, particularly when there is speculation that it is going to be a very active summer, are we at a point that inaction would no longer be defensible? Yes, we will reach that point. Whether we reach that, June 27th when we all wake up, or like July 15th, this summer, failing to act this summer, choosing not to act this summer, to me would be indefensible. Because the Blazers are at a different point than they were in the past in a variety of ways. Let me talk about the point that they are at and some ideas about trades in general with some specifics. Join me in that third segment. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. Still talking trades. Are we at the point where inaction would be indefensible if the Blazers were to make no moves? If the league is popping, right? If the transaction market is popping and the Blazers don't get involved, yes, I think it would be indefensible. I think it would be straight up malpractice to not get involved. And here's why I think that. It's not just because I'm itching to get Anthony Simons out of town. I certainly have been banging the drum that the Blazers should explore and should have tried to trade Anthony Simons, since February of 2024. I fully admit that my personal preferences on that. Whether my personal preferences end up being correct or not, we shall see. Like maybe Anthony Simons pops this year after the Blazers give him a $120 million contract and I look like a foolish doofus, right? But I'm going to bet against that outcome with my own personal opinions. But it's not just like that I have a specific agenda that I hope they execute. I don't care. I think I'm pretty comfortable being wrong in this space. I do it every day. I'm going to say some stuff that I get right, and I'm going to say some stuff that I get wrong, and I'm comfortable either way. But what's changed for the Blazers, and why I think it's indefensible, is because the clock ticks, and whether the Blazers are sort of felt that they were in a place where they could move on, or whether it was appropriate to move on from some of the higher paid, more experienced players. Anthony Simons is on an expiring contract and could be extension eligible. DeAndre Ayton is on an expiring contract and contract extension eligible. Matisse Thybulle is on an expiring contract. Rob Williams is on an expiring contract. If you do nothing with those expiring deals and you just let those folks walk, that seems to be a problem. Obviously, I should, to be totally clear, not making those trades in June does not mean they did nothing, because those players will be on the roster tradable up through February of 2026. So I don't mean to say freak out on June 26th or whatever, June 27th. What I mean to say is watch how the rest of the league operates. If the Blazers are an outlier relative to the rest of the league, then it starts to be a red flag. But what you have to think about here, what I think it's important to think about here is that mostly expiring contracts, typically in the sort of recent past, have been most valuable as trading for, okay, you've got a player under contract for 2 seasons, we've got a player under contract for 1, we'll take money back into a future year and you can pay us for our troubles. Right? That's the path which expiring money has the most value. And particularly for someone like DeAndre Ayton, who's owed $35 million, it's taking in that future money. Let me be specific here. The Los Angeles Lakers desperately need a center. They just need someone who can catch a lob pass from Luka Doncic and is not Jackson Hayes. They just need a real bona fide NBA starting center. And I think for all of DeAndre Ayton's warts, and I'm a fairly vocal doubter of him as a high level center, he's certainly a starting NBA center. Overpaid, whatever, but I think he's a right around the league average starting center, and certainly is that. Jackson Hayes absolutely is not that. He would help. But to get a trade done with the Lakers that looks reasonable, and you can cook up some ones that I would say are not reasonable, but it probably involves something along the lines of taking back Jared Vanderbilt's 3 years left on his deal. Do the Blazers have an appetite in which they'd be willing to get to acquire Jared Vanderbilt, who's fine and can be even good, but I think he's proven that he never sort of realized his potential as this elite defender, and he's had some health problems. Would they be willing to take back 3 years and $35 million left on Vanderbilt's contract to do so? If their appetite is there, then yeah, you can cook up trades that make sense, right? But if not, and if it has to be only Rui Hachimura and Dalton Connects with the Lakers, if that's the trade you're eyeing, that might not appeal, right? And if that's the trade, and if that's kind of how Joe Cronin views it, and I'm not reporting anything here, I'm just speculating. If Cronin also doesn't want to take back some kind of a crappy contract that's going to crowd the future roster planning, then all of a sudden these expiring contracts are less valuable on the trade market. I think Anthony Simons had already a narrow window, and the most sort of reasonable path was the Orlando Magic. Certainly you can find other teams that are in need of some shooting. I think you could say it's pretty clear that Dallas could use another guard. They could just use another dude who could dribble. You look at their rosters, what do they need? It's is Cooper Flagg going to be their primary creator in crunch time or whatever? How much can Spencer Dinwiddie do? Anthony Simons would help them until Kyrie Irving gets back and is healthy, right? He would certainly be helpful. But concocting a trade that is of reasonable value with both teams doesn't seem super duper clean. What is the Blazers' sort of appetite for that type of thing with guys with a sort of narrow windows like Ayton and like Ant, where it's going to take the right type of team with the right type of package? If the Blazers, I feel are motivated to make these deals, these are doable. Rob Williams is pretty hard to trade. It just with the injury stuff, he would be matching money, right? That's how. That would be his value at this point, which sucks because Rob Williams, when he's healthy, is a fun and good player. He just has not been able to get right. Matisse Thybulle, I think, really specific team, but no one's going to outright value standalone trades for Matisse Thybulle. So some of this is concocting the right type of trades, the right type of partners. Who has stuff? And I think this is where the Blazers' sort of personal preference might actually benefit them in the end. Over Joe Cronin's tenure, he has very clearly valued players over picks. He has, I would say, in his concoction of a Damian Lillard trade package, well, he did get some draft capital. Players, right? Toumani Camara, DeAndre Ayton, Rob Williams, Malcolm Brogdon. There was players that then he kept on the roster, valued players. And he's been pretty clear. We value players over picks. When they put together the Denny Avdia trade, they were a team in a sort of a rebuilding mode, sending out picks. Like one of them was like a late lottery pick, but still it's a freaking draft pick for a team in their position. But like, and one is a future pick that we don't know sort of the value of it, but it can conceivably be right in that range again. But again, it's more like the opportunity of not being able to trade that for something else in the future when you're a better basketball team, I think is maybe a better way to put that. But it's like, Denny Avdi's has been helpful. They traded 2 first-round picks for him, and he's been good. He was probably their best. I think he just straight up was their best player last season. Players over picks. And that's where this could come in. If this, because Anthony Simons and DeAndre Ayton are unlikely to fetch draft picks, because if they want to move Jeremy Grant, who knows if they can. I feel like they cannot, probably. But he's not going to fetch draft capital, right? You're going to be getting other veteran players on sizable contracts, because you're talking about people who make between $25 and $35 million a year. Thibault is in that like 11 or 12 million range. Same with Rob. So like when you are concocting trades for the Ants, for the DAs, for the JGs of the world, the Blazers' preferences for acquiring players and not picks could actually help them, because they'll be able to find that's what's going to be available to them. And as a team that has mostly prioritized players under contract that they can maybe grow in the system, that is a way to get there. Is that Jared Vanderbilt? Shoot, I doubt it, but that might be that type of thing. So all of this is to say, as we wrap up the show here, the perception around the league is that there's going to be a whole bunch of trade action. The Blazers, who are very they're going to have the mid-level exception, right? They could sign players in free agency, but I can't imagine that they certainly I couldn't imagine they use all of it, but they could use a portion of it to sign someone. But so like they're very unlikely to be players in free agency, because there's not a reason to be a major player in free agency. There's not names to necessarily chase to upgrade the roster. They don't have cap space. There isn't an appealing free agent that's out there. And Portland is probably, the Blazers probably have, they probably don't have a major appetite, just based on my read on the front office, is my guess, is to take like a serious step back. So the way that this team changes over and gets a little more roster clarity is through the trade market. And the perception is that the trade market is going to be popping. So if you are kind of using your crystal ball here, the next week, or 8 or 9 days in Blazerland is a crucial 8 or 9 days in Blazerland to see what the next version of this team may look like. It is not a finality. It is not the end. It is not they aren't finished roster building when we get to next Friday. But it will be an important thing to watch over the next 8 or 9 days, because if this is indeed their sort of a flashpoint in a major transactional window, the Blazers have major transactions to get done, and most of the dealing that they're going to do with this roster is via the trade market. Now is probably the time, unless they don't think that. And then the time becomes February, because they'll still be holding some expiring money, and they will have to make some decisions whether they pay these gentlemen or let them walk, or make deals that are likely to be slightly less palatable as rentals in February. Although the market can obviously shift, but my skepticism is still there. That is going to do it for today's program. Come back for tomorrow's show. Keandre Ashley, that's Hoop Intellect on YouTube, is going to join the program. We're going to talk all things Blazers and the NBA draft. Keandre's great. He's really, really, really good at what he does. You're not going to want to miss that one. So come back for that show. That's what we do. 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.